You know who else is always winning? You're winning if you are subscribed to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the On3 YouTube channel, but if you're subscribed to the On3 Recruits channel, that means you're watching episodes of The Inside Scoop with Josh Newberg, the Wilt Fong Whip Around, also new to the On3 Recruits channel. You're winning if you're watching that, and you are definitely winning if you're watching the show hosted by my man, the myth, the legend, On3 national recruiting analyst, 5-star flex host Phillip Dukes. Dukes, how we doing, baby? You got the A on the hat there, man. You looking good.
Yes, sir, man. The Braves been on the heater lately, right?
Have they? Okay, see, I don't even know. Like, I have a 47 hat for the Braves, and I wear it occasionally, and then folks ask me if I'm a Braves fan, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I like the hat, but I mean, I'm from Atlanta, I guess, but I don't know if I can claim them the same way, man. Hey, speaking of heaters, Ohio State, I mean, they're now the number one class in 2025. What's gone into what they've done over the course of the last, I guess, 7 days, landing 4 commits in 3 days over the weekend? What's going on in Columbus, and why are they so successful right now, Dukes?
I think it's just the fact of the aggression that they put in, that you started to see at the end of the transfer portal. The time is now. Harbaugh's gone. You can't lose to Michigan this year. And I think that it's a perfect storm for Ohio State recruiting. You got the development there. You've also been able to prove that you're going to win. You just haven't been able to get over that single hump. So now we're saying, you know what? We are taking all our arms, all our forces, and we are loading up to make sure that we don't lose that game this year. And if they win that game, then they're in the college football playoff. Well, even last year they would have been. But this year they win that game and everything changes at Ohio State. You've got everything. You've got the quarterback. You've got the receivers. You've got multiple running backs. You got offensive line. You got probably the best defensive player in the country on the other side. There is no reason to not want to be a part of what Ohio State is building right now, and I think they're capitalizing on that on all cylinders.
One of the things that I love so much about your show, again, the On3 Recruits channel, 5-star flex, get dialed in. You're talking to some of the top guys in the country, and so the fact that you're so plugged in and giving us, extra intel outside of just kind of the headlines of, oh, he's taking a visit here. What are folks saying on the recruiting show, or what are recruits saying, rather, about what Ohio State's doing and why they're so attractive right now?
They said it's a vibe in Columbus. To quote the young people, they say it's a vibe. When you go up there, it feels like winning. It feels like winning football, and it feels like championship football. And not even to mention when you think about the receivers, wide receiver U is the first thing they always say. But I'm consistently hearing that Columbus is a place that you have to get to fully understand. And that's why you're seeing guys go for multiple visits. And they're not just recruiting in the Midwest. They're recruiting Texas well. They're recruiting out. Naeem offered us from Alabama. You think about the guys from Georgia who are traveling up to Ohio State. And a lot of times when they get there, they want to commit because it's truly what they call a vibe. And the championship culture is permeating through the walls up in Columbus. And they're being very successful right now.
It's a vibe. I love that. I mean, I feel like that's got to be on a T-shirt if you're Ohio State. Like, throw that there with like the script I on the "It's a Vibe." I don't know. We'll read.
That's hard. I like that.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm just thinking here.
Yeah.
If you're Ohio State, if you're watching, hit us up. We'll talk some ideas. Speaking of heaters, though, man, the Braves, Ohio State, and USC, like they've been cooking. It seems like not just the in-state guys. Like, they've gone into states like Georgia. They've gone to Texas. Like, they've got a pretty national reach right now. What's the buzz around USC, and what's the reason for their heater as they're currently the number 3 team in the On3 industry team recruiting rankings for 2025?
I think they're recruiting with a phenomenal sense of urgency right now. When they get people out to LA, they aren't letting them leave without a commit. When you look at guys like Justice Terry, who was viewed as a Georgia lock this whole cycle, ever since he committed to Georgia, he's always been like a Georgia guy that you never thought was going to get out of Georgia. That was a huge surprise. Then you look at a guy like Isaiah Gibson, who's rising up the rankings and could end up being a top 10 player in the country based on how he performs this year. He commits as well. And then when you look at those two guys specifically coming out of the state of Georgia, a lot of people are saying, well, that commitment isn't going to stick. They're going to have to fly over Georgia, over Alabama, over Auburn, over Texas to make it to L.A. Now, that's the same thing that was said last year about a guy by the name of Cameron Fountain from Booker T. Washington High School. He was an edge top 50 player, and nobody thought that commitment was going to stick, but it did. And what they do is they recruit relentlessly. And now you got a guy like Eric Henderson out there who's coached probably the most generational and transcendent defensive player in our generation in Aaron Donald, who, like, how much more can you give to a guy when you talk about development in saying that I helped Aaron Donald become who he is. He's basically Thanos on football, and if you're an Avengers fan, that's the guy whose team you want to play on.
I love that, man. Between It's a Vibe and the Avengers references, like, hey, we're cooking. We're cooking right now, dude.
Yes,
So
sir.
speaking of vibe, man, like if you get out to USC and you get to feel the 75 and sunny and it's like February where you go back home and it might be a little bit more chilly, I have to believe like that's attractive to recruits. With this new staff too, you mentioned Eric Henderson, Danton Lynn. Like, is that pedigree factoring in with these, these defensive players deciding, hey, I want to go play at USC and giving their commitment over the likes of a Georgia or other big time powers that are, maybe a little bit more of the hot commodity defensively right now?
I'd say this: there's more opportunity. Guys on the defensive end at USC are absolute necessities. At Georgia, there's a stockpile of talent of 4- and 5-star guys. If you look at how USC is recruited, they go to the Southeast specifically to try to get these trench monsters. So when you think about it, you go to USC, you're almost a guy day one. At Georgia, you're going to have to bide your time, and they're selling that. And then you also think about guys who think about life after football. If you become a star in LA, you're always a star in LA. So you think about the lore that goes along with the Trojan football out there. If you're a legend on the field in Southern Cal, you're a Hollywood legend, which is a little bit different than being a Southeastern football legend. So there's a lot of things to sell, and especially when you got guys who are thinking about life after football, maybe they want to be in entertainment. Well, what better place to get your start than LA?
Yeah, a lot to offer out there in La La Land. I mean, that's a really good point for these guys that think about wanting to get into sports media. You got Fox Sports down the road, so I'm curious to see how that shakes out. You mentioned Georgia, Dukes, in terms of some of these guys that are getting out of the state. Georgia right now, I mean, it's so early before the early signing period right now, but like Georgia's sitting at number 13 in the industry team recruiting rankings. What do you make of where they're at right now? And you have a great video out on Kirby Smart right now on the On3 Recruits channel. What do you make of where they stand right now for the long haul?
There's a quote that I heard Kirby Smart say before, and that's in reference to a couple of years ago there were some players that were sitting out of spring in a precautionary kind of phase, and he said championships aren't won in April; they're won in December. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to recruiting. Right now, you may see Georgia at 13, but they're just biding their time. They're letting everybody, do the whining and the dining. But then Big Daddy comes home at the end and they say, hey, we need you. We've been talking to you the whole time. What's it going to take? We're going to recruit the heck out of you. And do you want to be developed? If this is the place that you want to be, look at the season we're currently having. And then Georgia does a really, really good job of using their current success and current recruitments. So as the season goes on and you watch Georgia beat somebody else and they beat another top 5 team and now they're 9-0 and they're 10-0. Now that conversation sounds a little bit different. Like, hey man, you see what we're doing right now? This guy just played himself into the NFL. We need you. And I think that plays a big role in how they seem to always come in so hot and heavy at the end.
I think that's a great point that I don't know that gets enough buzz is like, the National Signing Day in December when Georgia's getting ready for college football playoff game where they're playing in the SEC championship, which I think it's actually going to be the week of is when the new national signing period is going forward. Like, that has to matter. If I'm 17 years old and I see my team that I'm having an offer from, about to get set to punch their ticket to win the SEC or play for a national title, like, I know it's the expanded playoff, but regardless, I think the success and what you mentioned there is a massive factor, and I'm curious to see how that impacts guys going forward. Notre Dame, Dukes, they've gone to work, man. They got 19 commits right now, the top 5 class the number 5 class rather in these current industry rankings. We've seen Notre Dame start hot before, but then, kind of what we just talked about with Georgia, the cycle wears on a little bit. Guys stay committed. You hear verbiage around, well, I got to make a final decision. For Notre Dame, is there some extra confidence that some of these commitments they have right now are going to stick? Or what's the overall buzz around Notre Dame right now?
I think it's that Notre Dame just has to stay the course. They've proven themselves to be a program on the rise. Marcus Freeman is a heck of a recruiter. I think it's going to be really important how they continue to recruit Deuce Knight. He's the linchpin of that class. When you think about a guy like Derek Meadows, a 6'5" receiver, somebody who could be that battery mate for Deuce Knight, I think if you can build your class and keep those 2 in, then the rest of those guys will probably honor their commitments. You're going to lose some. Anytime you have, there's the law of numbers. And when you have so many early, it's almost going to be impossible to keep all of them, but you're going to add guys as well. But I think the key is to keep the anchors together. Make sure that you got Meadows and Deuce Knight. And then if you add a guy like Gavin Nix, you get a guy like Mark Zachary, when you start to add these top 100 type guys, now you start to realize like, hey, this class wasn't just a top 5 class on paper. This is a top 5 class in December.
And what's your opinion on this? Because I know Notre Dame, they want to get the guys on campus a little bit warmer in South Bend. Like, hey, come out for spring. Come check out the camp in the summer. Come check out beautiful South Bend. It's like 75, 80. And then they come back for a game in the fall or in December, and it's like, hey, coach, it's like 20-something degrees. It's 30-something degrees. Like, that's not what I committed to back when it was, sunshine and rainbows out here. Do you have an opinion on how you structure a visit schedule for a kid, or do you see anything that would be relevant to Notre Dame fans? And I don't pretend to know exactly how they've done it with this class right now, but do you have any opinion on that with Notre Dame?
I think it's important to kind of restrict your visits to huge games, and especially your ones from distance. The guys who are, when you recruit Florida guys, you want to have them at a game where there's a lot of juice. So last year, that probably like an Ohio State game where everybody, the national games are the games where they're going crazy in South Bend, where even though if it's cold, you can't even feel it. A couple of years ago, I was at the Auburn, Texas A&M game, Cadillac Williams' first game, and it was so cold out there. I think, and for us, 30-something degrees is cold, right?
Sure.
But the energy almost warms you. People like the swag surf. Every 5 minutes, somebody's jumping around, and we're talking about on a game that scored under 20 points total. But the energy in the stadium was able to heat guys even though they were cold. And I think it's the same thing that Notre Dame has to do, is make sure that guys are at those really big-time, high-leverage games where there's a lot going on, a lot on the line, and a lot of people there. There's always a lot of people there, but the energy isn't always the same. You got to have them at those high-energy situations, and I would restrict it to those. So maybe I would only have major recruits at maybe 2 or 3 games.
So bottom line, we get some swag surfing going in South Bend. Like, we might be able to keep some of, it couldn't hurt things. A little bit of swag surf on top, get the rocket back and like, hey, it could do it, right? That's all we gotta. We gotta implement that. It sounds like. Duke's best in the business, man. Anything else you're watching? Anybody else that could be making some moves here on the whether it be a player or teams that you're watching closely when it comes to these rankings?
I like Auburn right now. What they're doing, the way they're stacking their class. Now you're starting to see them make more moves on the offensive line, which has been their Achilles heel years past. I think this is the year that Auburn finally gets over the hump and gets one of those top 5 type offensive line hauls. And I think that would probably change the trajectory of where Auburn goes as a whole. They've always had skilled guys. You always got receivers. You always got DBs. But Auburn has always really lacked at the offensive line, and this is the class to do it. When you look at a guy who's already committed in Tavares Dice, they're really close to Broderick Schull. You've got some guys that they're close on, and there are some guys with optimism about Michael Fasusi. So if you can land some of these top guys, you still got Josh Petty. Juan Gaston is someone who's really coming around. You could see them dip back into Georgia and try to pull Braden Jacobs, who's a 2-time legacy. His mom and his dad both went to Auburn. So when you see these type of guys where Auburn can really get that type of class, I don't care if Auburn is top 11, top 10. As long as their offensive line class is top 5, I think that'll be like a huge win on the Plains this year.
Hey, you told us, too. We went down there last week, and you're like, hey, bro, the Waltos Performance Center, it's no joke. I was like, yeah, okay, I can't wait to see that. It sounds awesome. We walked in, and I was like, Dukes wasn't kidding. Like, this place is a rocket ship. So if I'm a recruit and I step foot in that thing, I'm like, all right, this is big-time football. But, Dukes, you're the man, bro.
Exactly.
I appreciate you making time. Anything we got on the 5-star flex you want to let the people know about? Anything that they need to be on their awareness game for?
Yeah, just when you see some of my videos, if I'm breaking down your school in recruiting, or if I'm not breaking down your school, leave a comment on a current video that I have and let me know who you want me to break down, and I'll go there next.
The People's Champ, baby. The People's Champ, host the 5-Star Flex, national recruiting analyst, the mayor of College Park, Atlanta, College Park, Georgia.
Yes, go.
Phillip Dukes. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, man. Thank you, bro.
Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.